there's no internet. There's still electricity, there's still television, there's still every modern convenience that we're used to. There's just no internet, and no one knows why. That's the premise. And the lead character, whose name is Gladstone, because why would I write something not about me? Basically, actually, the book is about, as a subtext, and you see it more in the novel, is really about internet addiction. But it's not as clear in the novella, and it's not clear at all in the beginning of the book. It's something you discover. So this guy's been shut up in his Brooklyn apartment with no internet for like 2 weeks. He's climbing the walls. He doesn't know what to do. He's no longer married. He's anxious for human companionship, I should say. Compassion too. And he decides to go to like a singles bar for like the first time in like 10 years. And he doesn't know how to handle himself without the internet. And this is that part. It was too early on a Thursday night for the Crazy Monk Saloon to be packed. I was greeted by several anonymous faces that didn't look too different from those I abandoned a decade earlier. But they were different. They belonged to people who were too young to have moved into the successes and failures of their lives. My face had seen both, and there was no comfort in coming home. I cut directly for the bar, securing a Yingling before carrying it to my private stool at a vaulted table for two. The bar continued to fill, and I found comfort in the wall as I took stock of my surroundings, looking for journal fodder. Reality, I should say that he's keeping a journal of everything that's going on. That's the notes from the internet. Okay, looking for journal fodder. Reality was troubling and new, not just to me, but to my fellow patrons who struggled to look attractive in real life. There was an energy I hadn't felt for a long time in my fingers and forearms, and not a good one. It made a tapping I didn't want to make, and movements were quicker than intended. I checked my watch and threw glances at the door, pretending I was waiting for someone. After a few minutes, something brushed against my leg. I looked down and saw a quite attractive but somewhat overweight woman. Her makeup was flawless, her chin and jawline were perfectly defined, and her ample cleavage were lovingly showcased as I looked down at her and she up at me. She had lost contact, but I kind of felt she lingered on the floor longer than she needed to create a flattering MySpace or Facebook perspective, the extreme downward angle accentuating the breasts while forcing a slimming perspective. There's something wrong with the Canadian water. You do it right in America. I'm sorry. That's an obnoxious attitude you've heard so much about. The extreme downward angle accentuating breasts while forcing a slimming perspective. It works surprisingly well. Can I buy you a drink, I asked, thinking people must still do that. Sure, okay, she said, and settled into the perched chair. My name's Donna. Nice to meet you, Donna, I said, noticing her agitation. Is something wrong? No, it's just the stool, she said, feeling around and hoping to adjust its height like an office chair. Tell you what, I said, why don't you settle in and I'll get you a beer? Michelob Ultra, please, she said, resting her chin on the table. Sure thing. I returned to the bar, fully aware I'd have to order something masculine to balance out the embarrassment of the Ultra. I scanned the scotches and whiskeys along the top shelf, looking for a cost-effective option. And that's when I noticed the reflection of a muscular man in a ridiculously tight shirt. He was using his phone to snap pics in the bar mirror while flexing. I ordered my Jameson and Ultra while he tapped the woman next to him. Check it out, he said, showing her the picture on the phone. When the internet comes back, I'm going to make this my profile pic. Cool, she said, or appeared to. It was hard to hear her clearly through her pursed duck lips. I headed back to Donna, a drink in each hand, but as soon as I turned, I was confounded by a startlingly beautiful eye. I'm sure there was a body connecting to it, but all I could see was a vibrant blue iris speckled with green. Perfectly maintained lashes framed the brilliance, and the colors radiated out along the curling black lines. I pulled back to adjust my perspective, allowing the second eye to come into view. And when I took a further step, I saw those brilliant eyes belonged to a face that contained no other attributes nearly as appealing. Not unattractive, but clearly accentuating the positive. Of course, I couldn't really be sure, because just at the moment I got enough distance to let the lines of her face form a picture, she darted up to me again, lids ablazing, going eyeball to eyeball. Hi, she said, I'm Samantha. And she took another step until my back was firmly against the bar. I'd shake your hand, Sam, I said, but they're a little full. She was too close for me to drink comfortably, which was too bad, because if my memory of early 90s beer-goggling t-shirts and baseball hats was correct, it would have really helped her chances. It was a pleasure, Samantha, but I have a friend waiting for me, I said, holding up the Ultra and heading back to Donna, who I noticed had swapped out her height-appropriate stool for a chair that barely put her head above the table. You sure you want to sit in that chair? Oh yeah, it's much more comfortable. Thank you. Well, maybe I could join you and sit. No, she barked before recovering. I mean, please, just sit down. I didn't get your name. After years online, I'd gotten used to not giving strangers my real name. Even my Facebook profile had been created under just my last name to avoid the spying eyes of nosy employers. And without even thinking, I gave that as my identity. Gladstone, I said. Oh, is that your first or last name? Last. What's your first? I'll tell you when I get to know you better, I said. After all, maybe you're just some frustrated spammer running a phishing scheme in bars. She laughed, and then she didn't, and then there was nothing. So, pretty crazy with the internet, huh? I offered. Yeah, totally. We attended to our drinks. Occasionally she'd adjust her breasts and look at me in a still way. I hope it comes back. I have so many pics to upload. Want to see, she asked, offering her phone. I flipped through a dozen pics, all with her face at 3/4 and shot from above. She had it down to such a science that if you printed them out and put them in a flip book, it would create only the illusion of a pretty-faced, moderately overweight woman standing still. So did you come here alone, she asked? I thought of Toby. I couldn't remember the last time I'd gone a week without speaking to him. I missed his stupid IMs. What started as a mutual admiration over 5 years had blossomed into a beautiful friendship, or at least a beautiful acquaintanceship, that lasted years while my real friends seemed to fall away. I was a faithful reader to his horribly inappropriate celebrity news blog, and he was a big fan of those 3 lists I once wrote for McSweeney's. We messaged nearly daily, but almost had never spoken. Still, I was confident he'd be a good wingman and wished he were here instead of LA. My friend's meeting me, I said. He's late. I continued to scan the bar. Some people were fine, but we weren't the only ones having trouble talking. I noticed what appeared to be a couple at the bar, or at least a man and woman standing somewhere near each other in silence. After some deliberation, he leaned over and overtly poked her. To my surprise, she blushed for a moment, giggled something to her friend, and then firmly pressed one outstretched finger into his shoulder. They stared at each other for a moment and then left the bar in unison. Whether it was to have sex or just say dirty things to each other from across the room while mutually masturbating is difficult to say. So how you doing on that drink, I asked. Can I get you another? Her beer had hardly been touched, but I noticed I'd apparently killed my Jameson. This is the last page. Thank you. No, I'm okay, she said, but if you need another... Yeah, just one more, I said. BRB. I mean, be right back. I got up and headed to the bar, hoping more alcohol would lubricate my way through this awkward dance. But as I got further from our table, I realized I was getting closer to the door. 2 more steps and I would be through it, and then I'd be headed home where the scotch was already paid for. I didn't have to remember to smile for the fear that the natural curve of my mouth would be mistaken for anger. I made it through and kept walking at a steady clip. I felt bad for Donna, but I wasn't worried about running into her again. That was my last time at the Crazy Monk Saloon. Nothing about the night felt right, and even the streets were strange to me. Like one of the rusty wires and a bundle of threads holding Brooklyn together had given way, adding an unseen tension to the rest. More fractures were coming. I needed to get back inside before it reached critical mass and snapped with the fury of a dragon's tail, knocking down buildings and severing limbs with its flailing. I kept my gaze fixed on the front entrance of my building and walked as fast as I could. And even though my focus was directed home, I couldn't help noticing something wrong about the way a group of guys were forming a circle on the street corner. I shut the lobby door behind me, almost silencing the sounds of a cat doing things it didn't want to do. So, that's that. Thank you for paying attention to that. Okay, I think we have... How's my math? 20 minutes for questions. So, someone ask a question, please. Oh, come on. I'll answer anything you want to know about, how to get published, writing a book, writing for cracks, dancing. Oh. How does this work? Cody, you're going to...
Yeah. Testing. Good.
Hey.
Hello.
Will you read my blog?
I knew it was coming. I'll read a specific piece you send me if you think it's specific. No, but seriously, I will do that. I have done that eventually. Yeah.
Well, first I want to say, now every article I read of you will be ruined because I've heard your real voice and it's going to destroy it for me. Especially when I go reread how...
I know, so you were like, you'd read my stuff and you'd be like, I'm going to read this normally in a not incredibly sexy voice. Yeah. And then you came here, like, what am I doing? I'm 180 degrees wrong. Yeah.
Exactly.
I know, I get that constantly. It's very frustrating.
I think my favorite article is the one about how to destroy your coworkers.
Oh, thank you.
That might be for the knife in the picture, though.
That was, yeah, I don't have...
That was like May, you wrote that. So what do you know about dancing?
Dancing? I know I don't do it. I know, I'll tell you, just because there aren't a lot of questions, and I'm only fake famous on the internet and not real famous like the people you'll be seeing later today, I will take this opportunity to tell you the one thing I know about dancing. In the mid-'80s, when I was going to bar mitzvahs, Bruce Springsteen was popular, and this is the only move I learned. It's the Bruce Springsteen. A little something like this. 1, 2. That's it. The dancing in the dark move. That's all I know. And then there's this, which came like prom step. You learn the pop step, and you can't do that.
My life has never been so changed since I read the line about whether women have daddy issues or other parts.
Yeah, I can't. I already pushed the envelope with, I think, reading my my novel, so I can't go to that. But thank you. Any I'm going to start asking you guys questions if you don't come to me. So it works both ways. It's a window. It goes both ways.
So, what's it like hanging out with the crack guys? Do you just have every place you go in stitches, or?
Well, I have to say that crack was, up until the last couple of years, crack was almost like a virtual office. There was, the only real members of crack were the editor-in-chief, Jack O'Brien, Dan O'Brien, no relation, and David Wong, and they weren't in the same place, and only Dan was in LA. Now, everyone who's an editor, which I am not, is in LA, so Adam and Dan and Soren and Mike Swaim and, well, until recently, Rob Brockway. So they hang far more than I do. I am just a freelancer in New York. I have gotten together with a few of them a few times. Probably if you haven't read this, I'm going through the PowerPoint, which isn't on anymore. The first time I met Adam Todd Brown, he did the Curry Challenge. Did anyone see that article of his? Yeah, and he had to do the Thai Curry Challenge, which is the guy from Man vs. Food did it, but Adam did it faster and more and without a mango lassi to assist him in it. And he did it while I was making fun of him, calling him a big baby. So if you go Google that, you'll see me out to dinner with Adam. And that was like live. I mean, that was just us being obnoxious in person. So that's about as close as I can point you to what it would actually be like to be a fly on the wall when us crazy kids get together. So thanks.
Thank you.
Is anyone here not from